Hello and welcome to our PCS Grades weekly webinar. If you're just joining us, PCS Grades is a company that is all about military families, helping our fellow service members and spouses make their moves go a little bit more smoothly. So whether you're moving in town, across the country, or around the world, PCS Grades has the resources to support you before, during, and after your PCS. So these weekly webinars bring experts to you so that we can address your PCS questions and get you the answers that you need. I'm Lizanne Lightfoot. I'm the content editor at PCS Grades. I'm a Marine Corps spouse, mom of 5 kids, and also a published author. And as a military spouse, I've done 6 moves, some of them with moving companies and some of them where we moved ourselves. We've moved across the country a few times and overseas once. And this is my wonderful co-host, Tessa.
Hi, I'm Tessa Robinson. I'm a guest content creator for PCS Grades, a big fan of moving myself. I did one to Guam, which was probably the most exciting out of all of them. And I have 2 little kids and I live in Norfolk, Virginia. And I'm so excited to be back here on our webinar today. We have great guests.
Absolutely. This week, our guests are coming to you directly from the moving industry. So we will be discussing PCS moves from the moving company and the driver's perspectives.
It's going to be a good one. We've got some great experts. So we'll go ahead and ask you to introduce yourselves. Ernie Pena, a professional van operator with American Van Lines, American Group Logistics, and the amazing Brad Reineking, COO of Charter Transportation Incorporated. So first things first, can you each tell us a little bit about yourself and your company? Ernie, let's start with you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor. I want to thank all the families out there for your service to our country. And so I guess I can start by just saying that, been at it since 1985. My dad put me in a truck at 15 years old, got my CDL at 21. I've had the opportunity to sit on both sides of the desk and both sides of the steering wheel. I've been in operations, dispatch, and I started out as a helper folding pads and learned how to wrap, do paperwork. And my career, mostly has been military moves. I grew up in San Antonio in a military city, servicing 5 bases. And so today, that's what I do, 100% military moves. So I kind of understand, what our families go through. And I'm, thankful to be a support to the families and get them across country, across town, wherever they need to go.
We are so excited to hear some of your tips and tricks to make PCSing a little bit easier. Before we do that, Brad, please tell us about yourself.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I know you mentioned amazing, but I wouldn't call myself that. But thank you for the compliment.
Hi, Pearl. That's why we have us.
like Ernie said, I just want to thank everybody for their service to our country. It's great to be able to work with all of the military service members. I have been in the industry for a little over 30 years. A lot like Ernie, my dad was in the industry for 45 years. Kind of got me into the industry. Most of my career, the first 20 years of my career, I was with a company called Grable, and we focused on corporate national account commercial moving, hardly any military moving. 10 years ago, I joined Charter Transportation, and we obviously focused 100% on servicing military members. And I took all of the knowledge that I had gained on how to satisfy commercial national account customers and kind of brought that into our thought process, our move process at Charter Transportation. And although we're not perfect, I don't think anybody can be perfect in this industry. I'm very happy to say that we average a 52% rate of return on our customer satisfaction surveys based on delivered shipments, and we average about a 96 score. So I know that we can do a good job. As we'll talk about throughout this webinar, there's a human basis to everything that we do, and I look forward to talking with you guys.
We are so excited to have you both here.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you for coming on. And before we get started, I want to give you some shout outs from around the country. We've got people watching from Fort Leavenworth, from JBLM. Here's Fort Benning in Georgia, and people tuning in from sunny Florida as well. Hey, Marion, good to see you again. And we have Fort Bragg represented. So if you're just tuning in, please go ahead and let us know where you're coming from. Greet these wonderful guests and just thank them for joining us today and sharing their expertise with us. So before I get into the questions, I want to let you know about our prize for today because I'm super excited about this one. We are going to be giving away a $500 gift card from the Home Depot. They have been a very generous sponsor and supporter of PCS Grades, and we really appreciate working with them. So to get entered to win said gift card, we're going to be taking your questions, your comments all throughout this live webinar. The more you enter, as you know, the more chances you have. And at the end, we will be spinning our famous wheel of names to select our winner. So keep on entering those questions and shout outs, and we will get started. Tessa, what do you want to ask our guests first?
This question is for both of you. Brad, we'll start with you, but I'd like to get each of you to give us a quick snapshot of the state of the moving industry. How are things looking for peak PCS season this year?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have real good news on that. As the industry, and I want to talk in terms of the total moving and storage industry, not just military. So, commercial and national account, one of our sister companies is the third biggest booker in the Atlas system, and they're continuing to see a significant increase in their volume, upwards of 15% over a 5-year average for January. And I think what's happening is corporations around the country are still trying to figure things out from a post-COVID era standpoint, and they're continuing to move employees that were supposed to move during the COVID shutdown of 2020. That was March through June, I believe. Mm-hmm. So we're still seeing a lot of that pent-up demand coming through from a national account standpoint. And I bring that up. I know this is military, but national account absorbs a significant amount of capacity within the industry. And conversely, we have the capacity of the military members, and a lot of that capacity overlaps each other. So we always have to be aware of what's happening in the commercial world. Unfortunately, if there's a downturn in the economy, corporate national account moves less people, which frees up capacity for the military members during peak season, which is always very consistent. They always seem to want to try to move about 9,000 members per week during peak season. So unfortunately, we're continuing to see the national account climb. And what we saw with the military world is the fourth quarter of 2021 was extremely busy. We never really got a break from the moves and continued, unfortunately, to see, the industry did delays and, meeting the required delivery dates of shipments. And it was really peaked towards the end of December, around Christmas time, because a lot of military families and corporate national account families like to try to move when kids are out of school on winter break. So we had a big spike then, and things really didn't slow down, which is not a good indicator for what's going to happen during this peak season. Specific areas of the country, the West Coast, California, Colorado, Washington, saw the biggest impact of capacity. Individual people moving themselves as what we call COD moves. They want to get out of California, try to find a better standard of life someplace else in Texas. And then commercially, out of California, a lot of companies moved from California to different states for the better financial benefits that they could see with their move. So those were the hardest hit areas. So California and Washington were very difficult to get covered. And then the issues that we have with the ongoing port congestion and the supply chain issues that the world is looking at, they contribute, on the side to the issues that our industry has. For instance, you can't go out and buy used equipment very cheap anymore. I mean, Ernie can attest to that. The equipment doesn't exist, and if it does, you're looking at it like, I'm going to spend, $30,000 or $40,000 more than I would have 2 years ago. This just doesn't make any sense. So you've got moving companies looking in and saying, I can't really invest more into assets because it's too expensive for me to do that now. And, the cost of packing materials increased. So we see a lot of negative effects from the supply chain issues. The other thing that's happening is internationally, with people coming out of the COVID era, work visas are starting to become easier to get, and corporate companies are now starting to move their international people. So we're seeing a spike internationally, which of course impacts our capacity as well. the COVID labor shortages. Every single place you go to, you see a help wanted sign. And it's scary because I look at it from a standpoint of moving is very, very difficult. And maybe Ernie will bring up some of this, but it's very difficult to attract new people to our industry. The DOT has finally said that they're going to allow a temporary program to allow 18-year-olds to get into a truck and get their CDL. So they're trying to, incentivize people to get their CDLs earlier because they know from a freight standpoint and an entire trucking resource, they need to try to get more young people into the industry. It's just very difficult to attract movers into the industry, at least very good ones. So that's very quick nutshell what I think is going to happen. And then, unfortunately, I was on a call 2 or 3 weeks ago with Transcom, and it sounds like they're unfortunately going to have to try to move the same volume of service members every week during peak season again this year, which I know some of the personal property shipping offices were voicing concerns that when they got up into that 6,500 to 7,000 moves per week, they just could not find any other resources. And unfortunately, military members had to figure out how to move themselves. So I think it's going to be much more difficult in 2022 than 2021. So
Well,
if anybody has questions on that, I'll try to answer, or if Ernie wants to throw in some comments.
I mean, it's super valuable information and it's useful. And you had a lot of feedback that our audience appreciates you giving it to us straight and being honest about the situation. I think the more that we know, the better informed people are, then the
Right,
farther
and
in advance they can plan.
To that point, I think it's extremely important that, we're starting to, not we, but our sister company is starting to talk to their commercial clients about what this summer could look like, and try to do everything you can to get the people to move on the edges of peak, move in the beginning of May or move like after August 15th. Try not to do it during the peak of the peak. And it's so hard to say. I've got 4 kids. I've moved 4 times myself. I never actually moved in the summertime because that's our busy time. But, it's very difficult, I know, to coordinate those moves with so many different aspects of life that kind of get in the way of your move.
For sure. And I want to give Ernie a chance to chime in too. Are you seeing the same things that he's mentioned? Do you have any additional perspective to add for the upcoming season?
It's the one thing I can say is challenges, right? And preparation is the key. Like Brad said, I always tell my customers, my members, if you can avoid moving at the end of the month, any month, but particularly May, June, July, it's the best. At the end of every month everybody's trying to get out to end their rent or their mortgage and start their new one on the 1st or the 2nd, right? And so, you have a shortage of rental trucks, you have a shortage of crews, you have a shortage, especially in the hot spots. So, be flexible. If you are moving at the end of the month, especially like Brad said this year, there's more talk amongst drivers during this time than I've ever seen in my entire career in the industry. And all of them are voicing concerns from all aspects, and the challenges that we are facing out here. Like Brad said, our bottom lines are affected. The challenges of labor, everything that we do from a driver standpoint, preparation. I know it was mentioned earlier, with the guys that pick up the sofas and stuff, but we're actually a lot of balled into one. We're operations managers. We got to pre-call customers, helpers. We got to, Monday through Friday, we got to pick up our packing material, and then on top of all that, be ready for any changes to be made at any given time. And so I would just say to the customers, pay attention to your dates. The closer you are moving to the end of the month, just be ready to be flexible. Just know nobody's out to get you. Nobody's out to leave you on the street on purpose. That's not our goal, right? Our goal is to provide you good service, good moves, and to do the best that we can.
That's awesome. Yeah, we appreciate you pointing that out. I think that's a great point to know that the end of the month is a busier time than the beginning. I did not know that before. So definitely the more flexibility that you can have, then the better. But Ernie, we're really excited to hear from you today, just to hear your perspective as a driver with so much experience in this industry. You've been doing this for years. You're still, we talked about jokingly before this, we should have had Ernie filmed in someone's house actually moving their furniture, because that's what he's doing on a day-to-day basis. So we kind of want to hear from you. What is it like for the driver during peak season? What's a normal day for you, or a normal routine?
Well, just in not during peak season, I'm on the road away from home 200 to 250 nights a year on average. And so I understand, that's why I connect so well with military families, because the same sacrifices that you all make for deployments and all of that, we as drivers do too. Most drivers wake up in the morning in their truck or in a hotel room looking for breakfast, making plans, hoping that their helper's car doesn't break down or everybody shows up on time, and then throughout the day, we're taking phone calls, especially in peak season, for hey, what's next? Talking to customers, what's the pack job? And then the rescue missions, right? Some of us drivers that are able to manage a little bit more outside. If I'm in the area, I have the ability. I've networked, throughout the country, and I have the ability to make some phone calls. And there's a lot of drivers. There's some on here that I've seen this morning. We're all in this together, and we're all in the same boat. We're looking for solutions, right? We all want solutions, the best for our family, for ourselves, as well as yours. And so that's those are just things that we need to take into consideration. I know that as we were preparing for this, we talked about humans, providing for humans. There's a human factor. I tell people all the time, truck drivers shower where 100 other drivers have just showered in the truck stop. We're limited to the food that we have. Where we wake up, traffic issues. The way I handle my preparation to get to a customer's house in DC, as I, in LA, is a lot different than I do, if I'm in Montgomery, Alabama, because I got to prepare, 3 or 4 hours in advance to get to one side of town. In Montgomery, I'm there in 20 minutes, so we all got to plan. It's a planning for everything. I'm one of those guys that as soon as I get my order from Charter, I'm on my phone with my customer. Hey, what size are your TVs? Do you have the original boxes? What size are your beds? Do you have a box spring, or do you have the other thing that I do is when is your delivery? What's your delivery plan? Are you going to SIT? There's certain parts of the country I can't get you into storage. If you're going to El Paso, they black out, in April for the summer. So, I've got to plan on putting that in storage in Dallas or in Austin or in San Antonio, and that's 600 miles away. So we got to prepare, for all these things. And not only is the driver, the family under the stress of going through all the changes every 2 years, 18 months, sometimes 3. I mean, we're also managing our own households, right? Our home. I've got my sons are older, 27 and 22, but I got a 6-year-old grandson that likes to go fishing, right? I've been married 29 years. And so, we manage home, we manage the truck, we manage the business, and we're involved in managing your move. So I may even have a little tone there that I'm complaining. I'm really not. I'm just trying to bring the perspective that there very much so is a human side to all of it, and if there's any changes, anything that, if a third party doesn't show up to crate something or to take apart the washer and dryer, if we're shorthanded on labor, then we're dealing with and we've got to overcome all of that. Has to be overcome.
If I can add something to that, Ernie, the more information that you can have about the move, the better off you'll be. I mean, one of the key things that delay us, and logistically, and I've seen some of the comments coming up here that maybe we'll address later on, but logistically what goes into move and the impacts of what happens during peak season when our trucks, our drivers, our crews are so incredibly pushed to the limits. I mean, Ernie's got to deal with the FMC hours of service regulations, all of the DOT regulations that he has. He could get pulled over by a DOT patrol officer in the morning going to residence, and they decide to give him a full inspection. Now he's 2 hours late. And now he's 2 hours late to get to residence. Obviously, Ernie's going to call the customer and let him know what's going on. But now he gets to go to on-base housing, and now he gets stopped at the gate, and now he's got to sit there for another 2 hours because there is no standardized process to allow people to get on base because every base is different. And then Ernie's got to be concerned about, oh, what's happening with my labor? My 3 guys that are set up now, I'm going to be 3 hours late. Are they going to hang out and be there? And he's got to make sure he coordinates all that. So there's a lot of things that happen out there sometimes that are out of our control. And the best thing that we can do as movers is to make sure that we're communicating with complete transparency to the military members about what's going on. I mean, another thing that happens sometimes is Ernie might get the destination and he finds out that he can't get his tractor trailer there. And now he's got to go out and find a shuttle truck. He's got to find a smaller truck. And if we're communicating properly, and Ernie's doing his job correctly, and I know Ernie does this, and a lot of our other van operators do this, but just keep in mind for everybody listening to this and spread this word out there that drivers should understand the vehicle that they're driving and if they can get the destination. Because what we saw last summer, and it'll be another repeat this summer, is when a smaller truck was needed to get into destination, a lot of times it was impossible to find it. There were so many people doing, PPM moves or Diddy moves. The moving companies would just rent these trucks like crazy and just hang on to them. So people couldn't rent trucks. And if we can't find a smaller truck to get that 5 or 6 or 7,000 pound shipment off of the trailer, now guess what? Now everything can be delayed for a day. The labor's got to get readjusted. The customer already checked out of the hotel, and now they can't get it delivered. So Ernie said it before, flexibility, and that'll be a continual theme throughout this call, is having as much flexibility as you can. And I'll just bring it up right now. For anybody on this call that's doing a PPM or a Diddy move, if you need your truck on a Tuesday and you plan on picking it up on a Tuesday, I would set it up for Monday.
Absolutely.
Because that truck may not be there Tuesday. Ernie, you had that situation a lot of times this summer. Set the truck up a day earlier than you need it, because if they don't have it, they can at least find you one for the next day. And the same thing at destination. So keep that in mind if you're doing a Diddy move this summer, that those trucks are going to be extremely difficult to find and very expensive.
And that's 100% accurate information. I mean, I think we have to understand too, like if I'm getting a load for the 20th of any of those months, I'm asking for my information by the 5th or the 7th, especially and I'm setting up my labor for the end of the month. If I see, because I mean the good quality labor, I mean it's and if not, then we're into another situation, right? And especially we have to understand that if I set a labor up for one day, those guys are set up, they may be set up for another driver and the next day. So if I miss that day, then now I'm back to square one looking for labor in the last week of the month. And I think I'm glad Brad brought it up, but one of the hardest things that we're seeing harder and harder is to get on base. I mean, I don't have a record, thank God, but I've been on bases where I've been on there 3 days, and then the last day they're like, you're not getting on, and I'm like, what came up? And I don't I mean, a ticket or whatever it was, it's like, and I've had guys get on base all week, and then on Friday they don't get on because whoever was checking them in didn't have their coffee and had a bad attitude. But we just don't, we face those issues, and it affects our ability to provide that. We have a lot to overcome for those moves, right?
Yeah, Ernie, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is a recurring complaint. Even before the pandemic, military families were noticing that the crew would be not allowed access through the gate, or would hold everyone up. And I think we've had some comments of people appreciating you sharing that perspective, but it's an ongoing issue. So I didn't realize that it could change from a day-to-day basis. That I assume that the crew knows in advance what the requirements are. Do you have any advice? Is there anything that either we can be doing or that you guys can be doing to help that process go more smoothly?
Well, I think that sometimes we they get picky. I know certain bases, I had one guy that just had an unpaid ticket, and they didn't let him on. He didn't even have a warrant. How it pulled up as an unpaid ticket, we didn't know. But guys don't get on for unpaid, for child support, and they're backed up on child support, so they don't get on base. And so There's guys that I would go to certain areas, they get on base all the time. And most of my colleagues, drivers, they say the same thing. Their crew got on base the pack days, and then when it came to load day, they didn't let two of the guys on and didn't give a reason. They don't tell them, but
Yeah,
so those are just issues.
I'll say that I know that Transcom is aware of the issue, and I believe the OSD, the Office of Secretary of Defense, they're trying to streamline a process that every base has the same protocols to get on base, because that's what happens. It's the base commander sets his protocols for the base, I believe. I'm not an expert. And then every shift might be different people working the base or working the gate. So like Ernie said, I can have two guys on there, no problem this day, and then the next day they just, for whatever reason, can't get back on. I had to go visit a military service member up here at Great Lakes, up in Waukegan at the naval base, and I went to the guest center. They would not let me in at all. So I called the military member. I'm like, hey, what am I going to do here? And she had to drive around to a different gate and then help me get in. So, and it was just strange to me because I was actually there to deliver some stuff that we had left in our warehouse. But so it's always a tricky thing there getting on base. We won't spend any more time on that. I know that Transcom's aware of the issue and trying to help us get work through that. So.
Well, thank you for that insight. I mean, even something just as simple as it takes us a while to get on base sometimes is, I think, very valuable. And Ernie, I have this idea of if every military family this summer could just think about when they're upset with their movers or their driver, that this guy's giving up fishing with his 6-year-old to be there. I think that empathy could go a really long way for all of us. I want to switch gears a little bit just to talk about if you were a service member or military spouse, what would you do to set the driver and moving company up for success? I guess what do you wish more military families knew about moving? Brad, do you want to start with that one?
I've got a lot of notes on this one.
Oh, good. Tell us.
I guess the first thing and one of the most important things is when your move gets awarded to a specific TSP, that TSP should be contacting you. I mean, our standards are, we're going to contact the military member via email and a phone call within 48 hours. And the person contacting you is going to be your customer service coordinator. That original call, when we do what we call our pre-move, is to gain as much information about what your situation is. And again, how much flexibility you can give us. And we'll find out a lot of different things about your move. Might you need storage? It's probably about a 15-minute phone call that we go through with the service member when we book their move. But it's very important for the service member to understand everything that we're talking about during that call and what kind of the requirements are of the military member, like making sure your washer and dryers disconnected, taking down TVs that are mounted on the wall, and we follow that call up with the intro email that outlines all this stuff. And it's always amazing to me, and I'm sure Ernie, you run into this, well, obviously more than I do, but how many military members just that goes in one ear and out the other, and they don't pay any attention to that. Or when we say, if you're going to have an extra delivery, if your stuff is going to SIT, have those items separated out, put them into a different room, or make sure that they're clearly tagged for the drivers. I've had some drivers tell me that they tell their military members, if you stand in one place too long, I'm going to pack you and put you in a box. So it's very, very important that when the crew is there and Ernie shows up with 3 guys, that there's a definite move plan throughout the house. And don't just have the movers show up and just not be ready. Or Ernie, I'm sure you've had it before where you knock on the door and somebody's still in bed. So be prepared from that standpoint. The other thing that I will say is a very, very big advantage for military members, and we ask this during our first call, is do you know the weight of your previous PCS move? What was your weight? 2 things. From my standpoint, most importantly, logistically, when we send a surveyor out, if the survey comes back in at 12,000 pounds, and you moved last time with 18,000 pounds, well, I might take your 12,000 pound shipment and put it on a trailer that already has 15,000 pounds on it, and now you're going to have an overflow. But if you knew that your previous weight was 18,000 pounds and you got the survey that said 12, you can question that with your move coordinator, and then our operations team can get involved and decide how big is the shipment really. So logistically, that helps us a lot with planning to avoid any issues. The second part of that is it helps the military members understand where they're going to fall within their weight allowance. That's been a pretty big topic at Transcom with reways and what the weight allowance is, so that the military member doesn't get charged money after the fact. So knowing your previous weight is one of the biggest things that you can help with.
Which you can't do on your very first PCS.
No,
but,
you can't do that on your very first PCS.
But it is important information to keep in mind for the future that that's going to be relevant again.
Correct. Or, I've talked with Transcom a little bit about why was it so hard for you to give us the previous weights? And they say because you may have had a NTS move, an international move, and a domestic move. And so you'd have to add up all three of those moves, and then we would know what that weight is. So if you have moved before and everything's consolidated into one place, make sure that you're taking that into consideration if you're keeping track of or you're giving the information for your previous move.
And do you see the question here from Chrissy? Where would they find a previous weight? Where do we have access to that? That's
a very good question. I would imagine that the personal property shipping offices might be able to find that, but I really don't know. The members that I speak with a lot and ask them, they're like, oh yeah, last time I moved, I had 13,000 pounds. They just knew. I don't know that it's very easy to find, but maybe that's a question when you go to book your move with the PIPSO that you can ask those questions of, or while you're doing counseling with the PIPSO.
So I know the service members should be able to access that through their transportation office. If you've done a PPM or a DIDI move, of course, you should have weight tickets of your truck from your move. So those are typically either emailed to me from the company or I have some kind of hard copy of those weights. But the service members should have access to their records as well. So I would say that's the first place to start.
Ernie, what about you? What would you recommend that spouses and military members do to prepare for the movers to come?
So like Brad, that's a loaded question. There's a lot of information that can go, but just a couple of things that I made note of from my perspective. I drive an 80-foot truck from bumper to bumper, right? So when I pull into the neighborhood, that truck is in everybody's way, no matter what, right? So I think the most important thing, and this is something that I go through in my pre-call, is prepare your neighbors, and have cars moved, have them out of the driveway, because me sitting in the middle of the road waiting for those cars to be moved, you got somebody going to school, going to work that's going to be late. They start hammering on their horn, and I'm just in the middle of the road with an 80-foot vehicle waiting to get parked in front of your house. And most of the time I end up blocking your neighbor's driveway, so we're not like a little sports car where we can just start it and move it, so if they need to go to work, a lot of times, I go knock and say, hey, we're in front of your door. We're going to be here the next couple of days. Do you need access to your car? Because it's not going to be a quick move if I have to readjust my vehicle, right? Animals, extended family members, for some, cats, dogs, prepare, there's some guys that may have had a bad experience with animals, and not maybe your dog doesn't bite, but some guys just have fear, right? Of my last few moves, they've had really big dogs, Great Danes, and they're intimidating just by their sight, right? So those are you have some plans for the animals, and then we have also understand that we can't work with our shoes off. We have family members that are like, hey, can you take your shoes off while you're working? And safety issues, and we'd love to. Of course, we provide floor protection. We provide plastic protection for stairs and steps and rug runners and things of that nature. But those are trash day. If we pull up and it happens to be trash day, let your neighbor know that we're going to be pulling those trash cans over to the front of their house for the day, because there's a 80-foot obstacle that your trash man may not, your mail, the truck's going to be blocking your mailbox, Miss McKenzie here saying wear booties, but unfortunately, we wear booties going in and out of the house. We're going to have to take them off, put them on, take them off, put them on. So, I'm one of those drivers that doesn't like to work past 5 o'clock. I don't like to keep my families after 5. You know, by that time, kids are hungry, animals are looking at you funny, and everybody's ready to go. You know, by 5 o'clock. So, you know, those are like Brad said, your washer, your dryer. You know, make sure we got it disconnected. Anything that's bolted or screwed into the wall, you know, we're not allowed to do that. You know, if it's a picture that's hanging, we'll take it off. But you know, just prepare your neighbors, be prepared. Again, we're there to expedite that service. You know, it's funny. You know, I always tell people this. You know, when I get up with generals and colonels, it it never fails. The last 3 years that I've worked with a general or colonel, I walk in and they have everything disassembled. They know exactly where their hardware is. You know, those guys want to be in charge of everything, and that's just the nature of what they do. And especially if you're going into storage, you know, the guys didn't see it come apart, so it's going to be challenging to put it back together. So if you're prepared to take it apart, you'll know how to put it back together, and you won't have, you know, those issues. It minimizes those issues, right? So so those are, you know, just those, you know, let us know what bathroom you want us to use during the day. If you want to isolate a bathroom, you know, those type of things, simple little things that we got to think about, you know. And um you know, again, we in all fairness, you know, when somebody misses a detail, it's because there's a lot of information. And again, we're dealing with the human factor of stress throughout that move, especially if the member is dealing with a deployed, you know, spouse.
Yeah, for sure. And there's stress on both sides. We know that. But Ernie, I'm glad that you brought up disassembling and disconnecting that washer and dryer. And I think sometimes that's where the communication breaks down and it gets confusing. What is the expectation that the family should have done before the movers show up? And we're getting some comments coming in about, are we allowed to pre-pack items? Should we pre-pack anything? And if we do that, especially using those plastic totes, is the moving company then going to put tape and all over those totes and ruin it? So can you talk a little bit about those topics?
So policy says that basically, when it comes to you guys, the military packing, we're going to have to inspect it, because the minute we take possession of that box, we are liable for the contents of that box.
Mhm.
So a lot of times, you know, if something's repacked, if something's already packed, you know, I'll go through. If it's closed, I just make sure it's filled to the top, because we need to use density to stack on everything. If there's a gap, that box crushes, the load shifts, and then that's when we get into damage. You know, especially if we're traveling through hard roads, Louisiana. You know, places that the roads are really hard to drive on. You know, parts box, a box of essentials. You know, things that you're going to want on the other end. You know, coffee maker, toilet paper, towels, cleanup items. You know, as far as you know, wipes, Lysol wipes, all those type of things. You know, and so, but anything that's overly difficult to disassemble, you know, that maybe is mid-grade, third party, not third party, you know, that's always going to assistance with that at minimal, so that when we get to the other end, you know, we have assistance to put it back. We don't lose hardware. We're not missing pieces, things of that nature. But for the most part, it's identifying, you know, what's going, what's not going. If I'm the type of driver, I'm going to inspect. I like my members, if they have something in a tote, if I don't necessarily have to take it out of the tote and then haul a bunch of empty totes, that's fine. But because I am liable for it, I do, you know, take part in paying for whatever's damaged. You know, I don't want to pay for anything I'm not going to get to enjoy. You know what I mean? So we want to be able to. But yeah, we're grateful that, you know, people try to get ahead of the game and pack things, but just know we're going to have to reinspect that according to military policy. That's our portion, right?
All
I
right.
think one of the worst things we can do too is we try to pile everything into one room, thinking that we're helping, and a lot of times we put it into a room and we can't get to it, right? We can't, because it's, you know, we're struggling with getting into, you know, everybody's maybe putting it into a garage, which is fine. We understand you're trying to show your house, so you'll store it in a garage or something. Those things are understandable, but a lot of times, like, oh, we got it all in one room, and then you walk in the room and you can't move. So,
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And I think it's just so valuable to have that perspective. We understand from the service member and the military spouse side how much stress goes into the PCS process and all of that logistical planning. And I think it's been really eye opening today for people to see all the logistics on your end, both Brad with the moving company and Ernie as a driver. So, do you want to talk to us a little bit about some of the stress and the frustration that the drivers face? We know that this is a human industry and it's people that are doing these moves. So what is most stressful and frustrating for those movers?
I would say that, we've always been told, I've always learned, you leave your personal life at home, right? But with us, we're walking into your personal life, right? We're coming in, we're packing everything. I mean, personables, I mean, it's, and, the stress level. And that's what I tell my members is, one of my jobs is not just to come over here and pick things up and put things down, right? We're here to work with you, work alongside you, build some camaraderie. I mean, I am a perfect stranger in the beginning coming in to move everything you own and drive off with it, right? So by the time I drive off, we better be some sort of friends, right? we better like each other at least, right? And so, I've had some instances where just people didn't want to move. They were mad. They threw things around. I had people throwing things at my customer. I mean, at my guys, from upstairs, and you know, uh, and I think one of the other things is, we go there on day one. It's like, I didn't touch my master bedroom. Can you do that last? And or they won't even let you see the rooms. Like, no, you can't go in there at all. I'm not ready, right? So those are, those may be some minor things. We do have a few at times want to tell you how to move things, right? How to load it or how to do those things. And I'm the right guy to do that too, because my temperament is, I deal with it. But sometimes people get a little bit pushy and say, you're going to do it my way or not, and especially if they've had a bad move, right? I get it. Like, you've had a bad move and you're just on edge. You don't know what kind of people you're getting, and it presents itself. It adds to the stress, right? And so we need to, we're all human, bringing human factors, human feelings, human perspectives from both ends. And I'm just that guy, and I've said this to a lot of people. Give me your customer with your worst experience, and I'll make them feel like they went to Disneyland, right? Because that's just me. I've been able to work through those things as a leader, in all aspects. And so a lot of guys, we all want to. Everybody's got a different temperament that they deal with, and so it's there's nothing that's not challenging about the move. We all, from both sides, have a lot of things to overcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate you putting that human face on that. And I just want to point out that it's not just the families and the movers. It's also kind of a triangle relationship with Transcom and with the military. And there's frustration and stress on all sides. There's all of us get frustrated with certain policies or the way that things are done. But we need to remember that Transcom is full of human people too, also just trying to do their best. And together, I liked one of the comments saying that it works best when we all work as a team and we try and focus on the end result is to get this family from point A to point B. No one is purposely trying to cog up that system. And so the more that we can communicate and work with each other, I think this is just going to be really helpful and smooth the way for a lot of people.
If I can interject on two things, number one, I don't know how this will come across, and Brad and some of the other guys listening, but cussing out our coordinators and other people really doesn't solve any problems, right? They're in the middle. They're not at the house that can solve the problem, and getting aggressive with them or threatening them, the operations managers or dispatchers or coordinators. We're all looking for solutions, right? And we're all going to face those type of things. And so they're called, and I'm saying that because I did 8 years from an operations dispatch perspective. So I've got to be behind that desk, right? And Brad, I can tell you that, Brad, with his experience, every time he gets on the phone, no matter what's with me, with a customer, with another driver, he's looking for a solution just like all of us are. If third party doesn't show up, if we can't get any packing material, if the inspector comes out and throws a wrench in something, whatever it is, everybody on that side of the table, on that side of the phone, we're all looking for solutions, right?
Yeah, Brad, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, like I said when we started this call and my introduction, we're not perfect, and I don't think anybody is perfect. And it's how do you recover when something goes bad?
Correct.
And that takes a team of people to be able to do it. And when something is bad, we know it's bad. We don't need to. My phone doesn't need to blow up with a million people, voicing their dissatisfaction. But we'll try to do everything that we can to make it right. I mean, the old company that I used to work for for 20 years, one of their key phrases was commitments made, commitments kept. And if I make a commitment to delivery on Monday, but your RDD is Friday, and I don't make Monday, the rules say I don't have to give you anything until I miss your RDD for a delay claim. But if I committed to it, I feel I'm obligated to make it right with the customer. And that's one of the key things that all of our employees here within our organization understand is to, make sure you're taking care of the military customer, or any customer for that matter. But I wanted to bring up one other thing. We were talking about, just kind of what to do to try to make your lives easier. And I'm sure, Ernie, that you can talk to this a little bit, but, every peak season or throughout the year, whatever it is, it's inevitable. I'll get phone calls that say my jewelry is missing, or, something is missing, something got stolen. And there was one that stuck out from the summer. The shipper was claiming $25,000 of missing jewelry. And, you can't say it at the time, but I just have to think sometimes, like, why didn't you protect this $25,000 investment? And one of the key things, and I have it written down in my notes, is your valuables that you have. Make sure that if you can take them with you, which there shouldn't be, I guess if it's jewelry, you should definitely take them with you at all times. Make sure that it's secluded into a specific room. I would not pack it into a box and label it valuable. Just make sure you know where it is. Put it in a suitcase that you're going to take with you on the plane. Do not make it evident that it's sitting there. And I say that because of the next thing that we're going to talk about is we're all human beings. And, unfortunately, there's bad apples out there in every single community that you go into. So are there bad movers? Yep, we talk about them all the time. And the American Trucking Association, they're called rogue movers, and they'll hold your shipments hostage. And Transcom usually doesn't, or military members don't need to worry about that so much. But so there's rogue movers out there. There's bad people in every aspect of our life that don't, believe in ethics or the moral, doing the right thing. So do everything you can to protect yourself on that. And one of the things too is, I'll just bring this up now because this happens all the time, is the movers leave the house, and a week later we'll get a call from the military member saying we have all the residence damage, or they cracked my driveway, or they ran over my landscaping. And it's so hard for me a week later to go to Ernie and say, Ernie, what happened here? He just won't remember it. So my one thing, that if something bad happens, do your best to notify your move coordinator as soon as possible, or the driver on the job site as soon as possible, and don't wait to do it. The more information we have and the quicker we can resolve that issue, the better it is.
Yep.
That is such helpful advice from both of you. I know our readers, our viewers, we've gotten so many comments today, just being so grateful for your suggestions. One of the other things that you guys use in order to capture feedback is the CCS. Can you talk to us about what that is and how folks can participate?
Right.
Or CSS, sorry, CSS.
Right. So the customer satisfaction survey is what Transcom and DPS use to award moves to the moving companies. So the higher customer satisfaction survey you have, paired with, I'll just call them your pricing points, gives you a best value score. And unfortunately, the customer satisfaction survey has not been very well has not been, I don't know if it's marketed enough or talked about it enough to the military community, because the rate of return on customer satisfaction surveys the last time I heard was only 15% in the entire program.
Mhm.
So only 15% of the people that move are doing the survey, which then plays to other TSPs and companies trying to get only the good scores and forgetting about the bad scores. Like if the industry had a 70% rate of return, you'd really see the scores that we're putting up there. So I would encourage everybody to do that customer satisfaction survey at the end of their move. Whether it's good or bad, just get it done, because it will help Transcom award moves to people that do a better job. And there's been a lot of discussion about this and how it is not a quality program because of the, I'll just say, gamesmanship that can be played. It kind of leads into a whole nother topic of the global household goods contract and outsourcing it to one provider. But at the end of the day, sometimes I look at all of the comments that go into Facebook and all these different pages, and the people most likely did not do their customer satisfaction survey, and that's where the impact is really going to be felt if you do the customer satisfaction survey. I'm very proud that we've got a 50 to 52% rate of return, because we start talking about that survey with the military members from the minute we get their move. So when we're done with their move, they know that they can do it, and it's a very easy process. I mean, sometimes it can get a little bogged down with the Transcom's help desk, which is where the phone number is that they need to call in to do their survey, because sometimes they just get backed up. But it's very important that people do that and that we get the grades for the moving companies and the drivers that are out there. I mean, every time I see comments back, good, bad, or otherwise, I sent you one, Ernie, last week. It was best move in 30 years. They loved you. But if Ernie got a bad one, he'd get the bad one as well. And we just use those comments to let people, the service providers, know what's going on out there. So that's the customer satisfaction survey, and it would be awesome if more people would do that. I mean, if Transcom could even get to a 40% rate of return on that survey, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, we definitely want to encourage people to use it. And I believe it's supposed to be mandatory for the service member to fill it out, but it's one of those mandatory things that is not fully enforced. And so people hear that and they know that they have a window of time and they put it off, and then you get busy, which I totally get, but it is so important. So the
other thing that I want to say about that, and we didn't touch on it here, but I know I have it on my notes, and I know we're running out of time, but one of the things that a lot of military members don't understand is that if you had a good move in the past, that you can, it's a cumbersome process, but you can request that same, maybe not necessarily TSP, but move management company that manage the move for you. You can request them by working with the PIPSO and working with the move management company that handled your move to try to get that same service again. Just because Ernie does your move, Ernie can only cover a certain amount of moves per year. I think Ernie probably touches no more than, I'd probably say, maximum 70 moves per year. And that's just one guy.
And I think everyone watching wants to book him for next year too.
Right. But he can only service 70 moves. So it's up to the move management company to continue to try to find people like Ernie or moving companies that can provide that good level of service. And I will tell you that every year we probably do about 60 to 70 request jobs from people that loved us, and they contact us back. We work with the PIPSO, we work with the member to get their move booked on a specific TSP that we manage. And then hopefully, because there's a human element here that who knows what can happen at any given point in time, but hopefully we can provide that same level of service again. But at least the military members know that they're doing that part of trying to stack the deck in their favor by requesting the people that did a good job for them before. And personally, if I get a request job from somebody, I'm going to put more attention to that job just because the person is putting their faith back in me to give them the same type of service again. So like I said, there is a way to do it. It's cumbersome, but it can be done.
That's awesome. And I appreciate that both of you were so generous and shared your direct email with us. So you'll see that in the comments, and you also see it on screen right now. If you have follow-up questions, you can email these guys directly and find out all the details that you need to know. So we really appreciate you sharing your access and your time with us. We are getting ready to wrap up. So that means that We are going to be sending those names over to our Wheel of Names. And before we do that, Ernie, do you want to share a highlight, one good story to kind of take us out on a high note here? Do you have a favorite moving story or a really great experience from your past 30 years?
So, I mean, there's so many I could speak into, but since I've been with Charter, it's been with American, it's been my best experience as a driver. The relationship that I have with this company. Of course, I'm older, and I don't make the same mistakes as I did when I was in my 20s, right? And so, I think the one opportunity that I've been given here is, sometimes moves will pile up in a certain region. I think this last year I was in Kansas, and I spent a lot of time in that area. And it was funny because I was assigned moves, several houses on the same street, right? And it was funny because I do one move, and the customer was like, "Oh my God!" And neighbors would come and see the move, and it was like, I hope I get you. I'm moving next week. And when I looked at my schedule, I was like, "Oh yeah, I got you." And so there was, but I think the main thing for me is I have a lot. I deal with some blue bark moves. I deal with a lot of emotional moves, and I could pick several stories, and it's hard just to put into one. But I think the ones for me that are is when they feel like, what, God set this up, or this was divinely set up, because the emotions they were going through, everything they didn't know how they were going to do it. They didn't know how, and we helped to overcome those stressful emotional situations. And at the end, you get that hug. You're no longer a handshake, but you become part of the family. And it's me, like I said, being on the road 250 nights a year, the emotions that go through, we're not just the guys that come and pick things up and put things down, right? We're involved in your life, and we're packing it all, and we're driving away. And so there's a lot of sentimental, emotional things that are involved. And I have a whole bunch of friends in this industry that feel the same way. I'm not one of a kind. There's a lot of us out there that take a lot of pride in what we do. We understand the sacrifice that we're all making, and we all want the same thing. We want you guys to be successful in what you do, and we want to be successful at what we do.
That's awesome. Well, thank you.
I think
so
Ernie
much.
might not only land several more moving jobs today, I think he might land a reality show. I think everybody wants to be a part of Ernie's life. Amazing.
For sure. Tessa, are you ready for that prize giveaway with our Wheel of Names?
I am. It's my favorite part of the day. We're giving away a $500 Home Depot gift card. So I'm going to share my screen right here, take you on over to the Wheel of Names, and here we go. $500 gift card coming to...
Oh, there it is. Chrissy Gibbs. Congratulations. Thank you so much, both of you, Brad and Ernie. It's such an honor to have your insight here with us today. I think you have so much love and appreciation from our audience. And audience, we thank you for tuning in for another webinar with PCS Grades. We will be back next Tuesday, same time, same place. We have an amazing guest. Corey Weathers is a fellow military spouse, and she will be speaking to us about the importance of mental health and carrying all of those good habits with you throughout a PCS move. So please come back next week to see Corey Weathers. And thank you so much again to Brad and Ernie for your
Thank you very much.
Have a great
Appreciate the time.
Thank
you guys.
Thank you.